the old boxcar.
Flying boxcar.
That was my dad's first jump, was out of that.
Is that right?
And 65 for him, so he's a year after.
You were there in 64? Or
no. Daddy was there in 65.
When were you there?
94.
Oh, yeah. I was starting to click. You couldn't be that old. Yeah, the instructor said the hardest thing about jumping a C-119 is getting it up to 1,200 feet. So you talk about fear. I never been so afraid in my life that first jump. Never. Gut-wrenching, knee-knocking fear.
I wasn't scared the first one. It was the second one. I was terrified.
That's
you know what you expect after that.
Most guys, their first jumps are the worst, and they get progressively easy. The courage fades over time, just like combat. If you're out of combat, I was never in it, but I read stories. And after you're out of it for a while, and you got to go back, and then you're real scared at first. So you were one of the few people I've ever run across that got more scared as they went along rather than less scared.
I'll tell you, I just didn't know what to expect that first time, so it was just a wild ride for the first trip to the door. But after that, I got, I guess, used to it, but at the same time, it's something you ever think about.
Well, you visualize, everybody visualizes what a parachute drop or a parachute jump would be, and I did too before I made one. And what everyone fails to realize or visualize is the noise.
Yeah. And then the quiet. The lack of noise.
Yeah, but it's just when the noise and the wind. Most people, when they think of the parachute jumping, they think of just, jumping out, because you see it, it's not a sound picture. It doesn't have a hawk going, and it doesn't have that C-130, it drops speed to 125 knots, and so you're 135 miles an hour, it's about a Class 3 hurricane. It is. And no one ever visualizes what that hawk is like. They open those jump doors, it pressurizes every piece of nylon goes waving like that. So what do you want to talk about what?
Well, how old were you when you were in the military?
Just turned 17.
Just turned 17?
Got my first adult arrest. I was 17 in late November, and I got my first adult arrest. And the judge no profit when I told him I was going in the Army. That's what the Army was like back then. They're doing it to the Army now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they waived before misdemeanor rules. They waived no felony rules. They're going right back to, they may have waived even a high school diploma. They're going right back where they were in the 60s, a bunch of kill-crazy psychos, man.
Cheap killers, man. That's what we all were.
Oh, man, I'm telling you, I was in Bravo, a rifle company for a year before I went to Special Weapons, and the great majority of the guys in there were not high school graduates. One enlisted man had some college. He had 2 years of college.
Right.
And he was actually a U.S. that had volunteer airborne and then re-upped and became RA. Yeah. So he was a draftee. He was the one draftee in the company, and he was the one that had any college at all. That's what it was like back then. It was like the French Foreign Legion, You get out of going to court by saying you're going in the Army. So, yeah, I'd gotten a vacancy arrest, childish done. Me and another guy was going into back of Royal Castles, which is like Crystal, and this is in Florida, Dade County, Hialeah, and Crystals are like Florida, and you knock and use the bathroom. We were going in the back and stealing food out of the back of it and then throwing it in the car. 17 years old, acting like a child. A gross of eggs, which is only about this big, a dozen eggs, is 144 eggs. You can
do all kinds of stuff with
that. Chocolate custard pie. Just walk out in the. I'm a sociopath, man. I'm like what they call an antisocial. That's the new name for it, an antisocial personality. In my day, it was called a sociopathic character disorder. What it was known as.
Really?
Yeah, you just walk out in the middle of a street, stand on the yellow line, 4-lane, like Hialeah Drive, Boulevard. Some people come along, you're standing right there in the middle on the yellow line, center line, and they're looking at you, and you're looking at them, and they're thinking, he's not going to throw that thing in. And you go, oh. And then run like that. Oh, I mean, tons of fun, man. Idle youth, what I mean?
Well, Gary, like I said before, the reason we're here to talk to you, marriage has been adjudicated.
Hey, I'll help you out on that case because we made a deal.
Yeah, we just want to shore up a few things. Yeah, I understood the FBI came to talk to you the other day.
On Thursday.
Yeah, We're not with them on anything. We're just basically going to give background on Gary Hilton. Just finish up our case. The one thing that we got to get out of the way, due to the fact that you are in custody, is our policy that we go ahead and make sure that you still understand what your rights are.
Yeah, I understand.
Which is our policy. I know you understand what your rights are because you basically you basically quoted them to me anyway.
Yeah.
But you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to talk to a lawyer and have him present with you while you're being questioned. If you cannot afford to hire a lawyer, one will be appointed to represent you before any question if you wish. You can decide at any time to exercise these rights and not answer any questions or make any statements. Everything good with that?
Yeah.
Basically, the from the military, I understand that you met your first wife.
Yeah.
In the military. What was her name?
Ursula.
Do what now?
Lucy, that's what they call Ursula in Germany.
And you met her in Germany. She, how long were you guys married?
Just married in 98 and divorced in 71. I've been going with her since 65. She was 16 when I met her.
Really?
Yeah, that's the worst mistake I ever made with her, running her off.
Really?
Gorgeous girl. I mean, truly gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, the best body, none finer I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
She had a body so good she'd be at the swimming pool, she'd be going to the ladies' swimming, and I'd walk along behind her and see a little boy just in trance walk behind her and follow her right into the ladies' room. I mean, she was stunning. And not only that, she was a good German housewife. Her father was a police Hauptmeister, the highest enlisted rank, first sergeant.
Looks like a chief, right?
Hauptmeister. He was enlisted, though, not an officer. That would be Hauptmann. That was, I guess, Hauptmeister. Highest enlisted rank. He was a police officer. She had an older sister that had already married GI 5, so that kind of smoothed away from me. But at any rate, she was gorgeous. A fine girl brought up by a police officer, fine German housefrau, kept a spotless house, meals ready. Only wanted to do what I wanted to do. And not only that, she had her training was as a draftsman. In Germany, they start them at about 15 into an apprenticeship program, where they go high school half the day and learn a trade or a vocation the other half. Whether you're going to be a waitress or whatever you're going to be, it's called learning, an apprentice. So her apprenticeship was as a draftsman. There was no computer-assisted drafting back then. None. No CAD.
That was when they hand drew everything, didn't they?
Everything. Hand drew, hand lettered, everything.
Even all the symbols or
Add the whole imagine a blueprint or, a blueprint. Everything, every single thing hand drawn. Sure, it was drafting. It was what a draftsman was. So it's a high-paying trade, and it was hard to learn, very demanding and difficult. And, of course, right up a German's alley, because it demanded precision.
Meticulous.
Yeah. That's what it demanded. Yeah, just total meticulousness. And patience, and Germans, anyway, the point is, she came over after I married her, I brought her over. She immediately proceeded to get a job. Leslie Lumber Company. My mother worked there, so that was the end. Got a job with them in the truss company, drawing trusses. They made trusses to order for buildings, and everyone had to be drawn, that kind of thing.
So you actually brought her back to
Yeah. I married her, and after I'd been going with her a couple of years, I married her shortly before I left for the States, so that would put her in line for a visa. So I married her, got her visa working. Back then, visas were damn hard to get. Probably still are for Germans. And got her working on her visa, and now she was my spouse, so, bam, she had. And then at that time, I left, went back, and stayed briefly with my parents, rented an apartment, or actually it was a guest house on the property on the Biscayne River, 125 a mile, sort of catty-cornered across from my mother and stepfather's house. And about 2 or 3 months later, then she came over. And then I worked another couple of months until December, and quit and entered Miami-Dade Junior College flying, going career pilot program using my GI Bill. Back then, maybe they still will, pay 90% of you after private pilot. You have to get your private pilot license. Back then, a private pilot license cost $900. You can get a Cessna C-150s dry for $11 an hour, dual with an instructor for $14 an hour. That's great. Oh my God, I'm not telling you. Anyway, so would pay 90%. VA would pay 90% of your flight costs.
Sweet.
Oh yeah, and the tuition was $150 a semester because it was a community college.
So you actually went through the training?
Yeah, I got the degree and got the commercial ticket with a multi-engine and instrument rating, and I got a certificate of flight instructor instrument ticket.
Really?
Instrument thing?
CFII, certificated flight instructor instrument, fixed wing.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of guys that are instrument rated even nowadays.
No, what the instrument rating then was an additional 40 hours as much as it takes to get a private ticket.
Yeah.
Private ticket was 40 hours approved.
I'm sorry, did you say you got commercial too?
Yeah.
Rated as, okay.
Oh yeah, commercial with a multi and instrument, and then instrument instructor.
Have you kept up with that, or?
No, I've never flown since.
Oh, okay. You just got it, just...
Got it, and what got me off of that is that I worked 13 hours a week as a student assistant at the college. It was a max allowance. It was in the audio-visual department.
Right.
At that time, Miami-Dade Junior College North Campus was the largest in the nation, 27,000 students on out of that one campus. Maybe still is. And as a result, their audio-visual department wasn't just a bunch of old 16-millimeter projectors. We're talking about production studios, TV, movie production studios, on-staff artists, on-staff analysis. We can make our own slide presentations and everything with our artists. Announcers could narrate them. We had a closed-circuit TV system in 67. So, yeah, using like the old 1 or 2 inch tape.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we had what we call a film train where we could project movies into a TV camera and show them over closed circuit. Nobody had that. There was no such thing as a VCR or VTR then, video tape recorder back then. They were, but it was commercial only. There were the big decks with either 1 or 2 inch tape. I forgot what it was. Yeah. Way cutting edge, totally cutting edge. And so it was a big operation. The distribution center, which did every kind of presentation, handled every kind of in-class presentation from slides to putting a TV set in for closed circuit to actually a movie, pushing the production. We did over 200 runs a day out of our distribution center. In other words, in-class, over 200 a day, so that kind of thing. It was a real operation. I worked for, in other words, they had about 30 student assistants per shift just working in the distribution center with 2 staff members supervising them, that kind of thing. So anyway, I worked as a student assistant for 15 hours a week during my whole time. When I graduated, they offered me a staff job, good pay, $3.25 an hour. That's what UPS driver started at then, which is the equivalent of $15 an hour.
So
that was starting.
So you went to work there?
Yeah, I went to work there for in 70 until late 71, and they fired me. Absenteeism taking quotas.
Well,
like I said, I ran that girl off. You know why?
Is that about the time you and her split?
Yeah.
Okay.
Within 4 months after we were divorced, I ran her off. I decided, here we got a beautiful girl, made even at that time 25-30% more money than I did even on my good paying staff job. In other words, she made the equivalent of $20 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good grief. Right? Perfect house, squeaky clean, you could eat off the damn floor, meals ready, work to boot, gorgeous girl, and really only wanted to do what I wanted to do. And if I didn't want to do anything, she wouldn't like it, but she'd do it. If I wanted to sit around and smoke pot or something, she didn't do any drugs, didn't drink. I was a pothead, of course, by then. And anyway, we could smoke on campus. The staff would go into the air conditioning room, which is a room bigger than this, with an air conditioning unit taking up most of it, and take some student assistants there, and we'd go in there and smoke. We had the Film Society where we showed avant-garde films every Thursday night, Jean-Luc Godard films and Ingmar Bergman films and that kind of thing. And the whole auditorium would be lighting up. And finally the cops got wind of it and came in and busted 27 people. That was the end of the Film Society. But that was it back then. Drugs back then had not been demonized.
Right.
They were demonized very effectively under Reagan.
Right.
And he finally got that Omnibus Federal Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986 in, which gave draconian penalties for for drugs. That was in 86. So you end up with a Macon housewife importing a kilo of coke with two other people, and one of them had a firearm in their house when they were arrested. They had to add that up. The Macon housewife got 30 years no parole and serving it right now. Yeah. That's your demonization of drugs right there.
Well, you say you got fired from that job for absenteeism because you were taking Quaaludes.
Yeah, and barbiturates. Within 3 months, maybe 5 months after I divorced with.
So how many years total were you married to her?
From 68, summer of 68 to summer of 71.
Summer of 71, so 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Did you break it off with her? Or
I ran her off. Oh, you know why I ran her off? I'm telling you all these qualities she had. Well, remember now, this is a cultural revolution that's really hitting home. By 1970, everyone was in effect doing the 60s. You know what I mean?
Caught up to it?
Yeah, that really hit people in California were doing the 60s in the early 60s. They were taking acid while it was still legal, in 63, 2, 1, and so forth. They were really doing the 60s, the diggers, the free food distribution, the real hippies. And by 1970, now, the masses, including me, were doing the 60s. So I was doing the 60s and 70s.
Well, the Army took away from that, too.
Oh, yeah. I did a flip from being gung-ho to being, a liberal, down with the establishment. But anyway, we had the Cultural Revolution going on. And I was in college, and even though I wasn't on the teaching staff, it was in a sense the same status almost as being on. You were staff. Oh, yeah. Air conditioning wasn't a blue-collar job, nothing else. Just white shirt and tie and running a learning center or running a distribution center or this and that, supervising 30 student assistants, that kind of thing. Air conditioned, intellectual, that kind of academic atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
And my gripe against her was that she was just empty-headed and didn't have a thought in the world, and she was not sophisticated enough and not intellectual enough. You're talking about stupid. Women today have too many thoughts. They have too, you know what I mean? If you could find a woman that's just simple and plain and whatever you want, honey, and here's your food, and I got the house clean, and I'm good looking to boot, and I make more money than you, well, my God, stupid. Women today have too many thoughts. They have too, you know what I mean? If you could find a woman that's just simple and plain and whatever you want, honey, and here's your food, and I got the house clean, and I'm good looking to boot, and I make more money than you, well, my God, you see how stupid I am? I'm a fucking idiot. There's a pattern throughout my life of taking good things and just crushing it, throwing them to fuck.
Did you ever run around on her while you were working at the college?
No, I didn't, except at the end. Yeah. I did. At the end. Yeah. I did. Some other staff members were, and as a matter of fact, the third highest in North Campus AV department, it would have been the director, assistant director, and then this guy openly had a student girlfriend. He was a man, in other words, married, and openly had a student girlfriend who was always with him and everything. And again, it was a different atmosphere back then. Now that would be a felony, I think, for a teacher. I think for a felony, a teacher to have sex with a student is having sex with a person in custody is the same as. I think it would be a felony. Yeah. Well, he wasn't a teacher.
Shortly after that went south, and you
got another one? Yeah. My geopolitical views, everything. And probably they had to stop. So the last thing the Pennsylvania deputy, John, said to me, he said, he was a little, he said, and thanks for allowing us to bend your ear. He said, I laughed. I said, thanks for letting me bend your ear. Thank you.
So after college, or after your
well, anyway, I fell into the clutches of this older woman who was 8 years older than me, and she was a drug dealer. She was from a New York Jewish diamond family, that 54th Street diamond family, diamond folks that do these $1 million deals with a handshake, and you pass them, and they wrap the diamonds in paper. Everyone's got their particular code, and they hand each other $1 million in diamonds and shake hands, and that's it. You can't get into it. You gotta be born into it and Jewish. Okay.
What was her name?
Paulette, and her maiden name is Paulette Goldman.
Paulette Goldman. And she was 4 years older than you?
8.
8 years older than you?
Okay. At any rate, So she was the misfit. They didn't know what to do with her. She was a woman. So they had bought her a house at the edge of Coral Gables, between Coral Gables, Coconut Grove boundary. Again, Coconut Grove at that time was real avant-garde, artsy-fartsy, artist colony.
The Greenwich Village of Florida.
All that stuff has probably been torn down now, and big condos probably put on it. Back then it was a village, like Buckhead Village used to be, but only much, much bigger. And all kinds of cool, hip people lived there. So. And, of course, Coral Gables was a very rich place, and this was right on the boundary. So they bought her house, and she was going to University of Miami majoring in sociology. And she didn't even manage, she managed to graduate with a bachelor's degree in sociology. But she was a drug dealer, and mainly marijuana, ounce marijuana dealer. And I moved in with her. And, boy, that was not a good influence.
Really?
Yeah, well, she's the one that got me started on the downs. I'd never had a down. We call them downs. Central nervous system depressant, let me put it that way. Depress the functioning of your central nervous system. And back then, it was the hypnotics in the form of methylqualone hydrochloride, which is Quaalude, Harris, so forth. You might remember, or you won't remember, but so forth. And of course the barbiturates. They were still, barbiturates were still widely prescribed at that time, just as sleeping pills. We're talking about Amitol, Seconal, Nembutal, and the combination of Seconal and Amitol was Tumanol. It was blue and red, caps like that, and they were considered the king. They're true narcotics. They're true opium derivatives.
What was the street name for them back then?
Downs.
Yeah.
Tumanol for 2 weeks. And then others were called by the colors they were. I think reds. Well, there was reds, blues, and yellows, and by the color they were. I wouldn't be surprised that it's impossible to get hold of a barbiturate these days. But I don't know if
They're out of fashion a little bit.
I don't. Well, the newer classes of antidepressants and sleeping pills, But back then, that was what people said. Oh, we'll take a sleeping pill. That's what they were talking about.
Would you classify yourself as a hippie back then, or?
By then, what the hippies were, it was just every kind of outlaw street person in the world. You would call it counterculture more than anything, misfits. And the whole country was awash in them. It was just awash in them.
To be there back then. That was movement kind of.
And of course they themselves were wearing a uniform and doing the style. And the country was just awash in young people. If you'll read, well, you don't, but in Atlanta in the late 60s and early 70s, since it's a regional capital, they had at the Piedmont Park, 2nd Street, and the Peachtree there, it was just awash in them. The whole country was full of just raggedy-ass young people hitchhiking and doing not much of anything. And, at that time, we thought drugs were going to be legal within a few years. Yeah, the amazing thing to me that I'm always shaking my head over is this great, big, huge cultural revolution we had in the 60s and 70s has almost utterly vanished. Utterly. And it's back to the 50s now. Back in the 60s, if I said, hey, businessman, that would be a bad thing. Hey, Mr. Businessman, take care of business, Mr. Businessman. That would be a bad thing to say about someone. And now, what does every young person want to do? Get a MBA. They're all just, little geeks on, keyboards pecking away. The Bible says a meek shall inherit the earth. Well, I know what it means. This was a fat fuck behind a keyboard. Right? Got 10 times more powerful than me, and I'm a stud, man. I'm a stud. I can whip ass left and right, and they're more powerful, 10 times more powerful than me. Fat fuck in a keyboard.
Sitting in a cubicle.
Yeah, I learned to type in the 60s in the Army when almost no man could type, unless you're a reporter or writer, but I won't type now. I call it women's work, which shows I never make it on the outside, which is, why I'm sitting here doing life and realizing it's the only place for me. I've said it before, I'll say it again. You could take me to the front door of this deal and say, go forward and say no more. I literally have to turn back around and walk back in here. There's nothing out there for me. And you see what my relationship with society as a whole is. I mean, it's only 5% of the people that have come forward so virulently and vehemently to knock me, but if the other 95% of them silent majority and don't, they're not going to speak up. Oh, I know Gary Hilton. He's a great guy. I know Hannibal Lecter. Yeah, Hannibal. Hannibal the Cannibal Silence. So, I know Hannibal Lecter. He's a great guy. No, they're not going to say a goddamn thing.
You'd be surprised people will come forward and talk pretty good about that.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm not in the sense that they are 19 out of 20. It's the people that try to fuck with me, which are relatively rare.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I put myself in a position where I have a high amount of exposure to that type of people, and that is in dog situations. It's people with dogs. The average dog owner doesn't know jack shit about dogs. The average animal control officer doesn't know jack shit about dogs. They anthropomorphize. That means assigning human qualities to something. Anthropomorphic. Okay? And they assign human qualities to dogs. And what that means is that they want dogs to be like humans, which is be nice and get along. Well, that's not the way it is in the dog world. Because when dogs talk to each other, they quite often revert back to the wolf world. And the wolf world is more incredibly savage and brutal than you can ever imagine. Wolves are one of the only animal that I know of, other than human beings, that will run down and run down and run down and run down and go and go and go after another member of their own species to kill it. Okay?
Just for the sake of killing?
No, it's that if they get in their territory, rather than just run them out, if they can, they'll go and go. Other animals, it's just brief contest of strength, more or less. But a wolf pack, if they detect another wolf from outside their pack in their territory, they'll run it and they'll run it and they'll run it and they'll run it. And if they can catch it, they'll kill it. An alpha female, you got your alpha male and alpha females in a pack, the leaders of the pack. Okay, I've heard a wildlife biologists say that they're studying them in yellow. They're back in Yellowstone now, so they're really getting good data on those in the last 10 years. I heard a wildlife biologist on video say, an alpha female may get up in the morning and kill her mother and run her sister off. That's how savage and brutal the wolf world is. And that's what dogs can revert back to when they're talking to each other. Humans don't understand that in the dog world or the wolf world, there are no assault and battery laws. There are no murder laws. And quite often, there is no fear. Okay, imagine such a world where there's no murder laws. And there's no fear, which is why you see little chihuahuas getting killed all the time. They won't back down. Right. You just grab them one shake and they're gone, man. Y'all see little dogs get killed that way. They won't back down. Yeah, no murder laws, no aggravated assault, no assault and battery laws, and quite often no fear. That's what the dog world is, and you've got to understand that and be appropriately cautious. And humans don't understand that. And not only that, they are aware that their dog may fight and has fought and they're aware of that. But on the other hand, they can't control the dog. The dog isn't trained. No one has enough time to spend with their dogs to begin with to get them properly trained. So that means the dog is going to have to lead his life at the end of the leash, and he's jerking around. And what they want to do is let their dog run loose. And everyone that the dog confronts, they want to say, "It's okay, he's friendly," and they know it. I've had people let their dogs confront me and fight, and me fight the dogs, have them call the police on me, and then in the succeeding year have seen that same person and that same dog get in 2 or 3 more incidents of the same. A woman at Stone Mountain had 2 dogs 150 yards from me. I spotted them, and you're at a loss between trying to call. And you're kind of conflicted as whether to call her and warn her, or the fact is that as soon as they hear you call, the dogs are coming after you. You don't really know what to do. I called her. I said, "Yo, we got a dog here, dog under control." Wow, dogs come right at me from a long way, 150 yards away. Dog split up, So I'm doing stick work on one, and when they split up, then you're going to have to use pepper if they split out. You're going to have to spray one at one with pepper.
At distance.
Yeah, not necessarily. It's hard to actually disable a dog with pepper, but conversely, dogs sense the pepper immediately, and it'll turn them. It'll turn them momentarily. If the dog is determined, he'll come back. So you just take a shot at him. And I'm doing the stick work. The thing about the stick or the baton is that it can be used in a graduated manner, and that it does command respect from most dogs. And that's the beauty of the whole thing is a graduated manner, as opposed to pepper or opposed to bullet. In other words, in fighting a dog or a human with a stick, my goal is to shape the situation. My goal in a stick fight with a human or a dog is not to make contact with the dog. A successful stick fight is preventative. To me, it's shaping it with a stick and not making contact. Because it takes it to a whole other level when you make, especially with a human being. You hit a human being with a stick, regardless of the situation, it's probably going to ruin your day, buddy. And it may not go your way either, even though it always has. I've had the police call on me 30 times at least, and no exaggeration in 17 years. No exaggeration at all. At least 30 times. I've had them called 5 times in Murphy County. I've had them called 3 times at Stone Mountain alone. And that's 8 right there. Okay, at least 30 times. And in every single time that the police were called on me, the police have confirmed that I did not act unlawfully. And there's been a couple of times the police have written me a letter saying that I could press charges if I want. The one time it didn't go my way was not with a police officer. It was with animal control. Animal control are not police officers. And none of them have been in their jail. They just civilians with their uniforms all there. Police officers, the good ones, and most of them are good these days. Police work, of course, has become highly professional. And I'm talking to Cab North in particular. Cab North has seen a lot of me. And police officers are trained to interrogate people and to arrive at the truth. I found that police officers may not be able to tell if you're lying, but if you're telling the truth, they can tell. Generally, they may not can tell if you're lying, but they can tell generally if you're telling the truth. Okay, and in every 30 times, with the exception of the animal control one, it went my way. And if it had not gone my way, I was going to jail over assault with a deadly weapon, and that can be up to $20,000 bond in some cases. Okay, so serious charge. Okay, and every single time, like this instance I was telling you about, I had to spray with a dog's stick work, just shaping the situation. In other words, using it in a graduated manner ranges from merely presenting the stick and showing the stick, to waving the stick, to all the way to contact. Okay. To thanking with the stick or faking with the stick, One thing I learned about thanking with a human being, dogs are real good at movement. They pick up movement, like that, but humans don't. And I learned with humans that if you're going to thank at a human, don't do it at combat speed, because I'm too fast for them to see and it doesn't make an impression on me.
So you're making a presentation you want to do?
Yeah, I did that one time to a human. The guy just, after we were in the middle of a confrontation, he had a big loose male, and et cetera. There was a female and he present. It was a real melee. And so the kid, a nut, this is one of the few times that the guy wasn't bigger than me. Usually if you have a stick and handling yourself well, the guy's always going to be bigger than you. Well, this time the kid wasn't. He was only my size. And he comes right at me from 10 feet away, like boring right in on me. So I gave him a feint, I did like that real quick. So that what happens is the tip of the stick is going right at you and then coming back, so you don't get the traversing motion. You don't get the impression of movement that a traversing motion would. And as a result, it was so quick that he didn't even see it. But the point is that I goofed out and I just touched him right there. And he said, because he didn't even see it, but he felt it. Right? He said, I don't believe you did that. I don't believe you did that. did you see him do that? And I looked behind me and his buddy was coming up behind me, which is another thing. Keep your focus wide when you're fighting. That's the hardest, that's a critique that you can always make, no matter how good of a fighter you are, stick fighter you are, or street fighter, whatever. You do these after action critiques, and you break it down and try to analyze what you did wrong, what you did right, so you can learn from it, just like you're doing.
Right.
You can always make a critique. I didn't keep my focus wide enough. You tend to fixate on the target.
Right.
Sure. You got to keep your focus wide, not only to look for other threats, but to look for witnesses. Witnesses, of course, but a whole different thing. If you have witnesses, you'll act in some way, and if you don't, you may act another way.
Right.
But typically you want witnesses, because they always lie, naturally. But again, the police can tell when I'm telling the truth. They come, and I tell them the truth, and it makes sense to them. And the other people are not telling them the truth, and they're giving a lot of excuses and rationale why they assaulted me. And rationale why they assaulted me, basically. But anyway, what I learned from that, in addition to keeping your focus wide, which is always what you're learning, is that when you do a feint, two things. Number one, when you feint against a human, don't do it at combat speed. Make your feint real broad, like rapid, okay? Don't do it at combat speed. And number two, don't feint to the head area. That's so if you goof up, you won't have a head strike. Which you never hit a person in the head or neck unless it is a fatal force scenario.
Right. Yeah. Well, get back on track to the 70s. Well, how long did you stay with, what was your name? Paulette.
Till 73.
73? Mm-hmm. And what did you do at that point?
Well, we broke up, and by then I was destroyed. Totally destroyed. I mean, here I am now. I'm deep into downs now.
Mm-hmm.
They're addicting.
Right.
Barbiturates are physiologically addicting. Well, so are Quaaludes, for that matter. But Quaaludes are psychologically addicting to the hypnotic class of drugs. Mm-hmm. And now I've been taking those for 2 years, heavily, through her. A lot of them. And I'd lost my job, my good job. Mm-hmm. Got fired from that. My hair had grown long. I was totally fucked. I was homeless. Just totally fucked. Totally fucked.
So what did you do?
Started working in what would now be called telemarketing, but it was no such thing then. Back then there was no telemarketing. Telephone sales really consisted of people in phone rooms, boiler rooms they were known as, impersonating police officers, labor union officials, civic leaders, and firefighters. That's what it was. You would be working in a FOP phone room, and they would be detectives in there with their guns, and the phone men would be sitting around going, hey, Joe McBride, National Peace Officers Association. Also appreciate a little sport, but I'll get you that sticker there with the badge decal, put it beside your license plate there. And I think the state can give you a license to go 90 miles an hour down the expressway and beat your wife. But I think you understand the police appreciate it. You never directly tell them you're a police officer, you just imply that you were. Right. Same with the firefighters, same with labor union officials. You say AFL-CIO changed it. Hey, we're putting together a book for our convention, supporting the kids at the same time, going to have the governor in, going to have a nice book to push across from it. I think you understand that any support you give to organized labor will never hurt you.
Right.
Oh, now it's true. It's true. Back when my daddy was getting his head busted on Ford overpass by company goons, yeah. We used to have to throw a bomb once in a while, send the boys over there, turn that place into a parking lot. Those places are long gone. Oh yeah, that's what it was back then. That's just a bunch of people impersonating. And it would be the JCs, the Junior Chamber of Commerce. They were notorious.
Had you moved to Georgia at that point? Or?
No, yeah. Then I moved to Atlanta. Yeah.
About what time frame were we talking about? You moved to Atlanta?
73. Oh no, in 73 and early 73.
Early 73, you had moved to Atlanta?
Yeah.
That was when you were in,
Yeah, it was several months after we had broken up, and I was just homeless, and I was working phone deals and down in Miami-Dade and getting my teeth cut. Miami-Dade, or Miami, Dade County was really a hotbed of this type of stuff, this type of phone fraud, if you will. And so was Atlanta. Actually, a lot going on in Atlanta. But the reason I came up to Atlanta was I'd been born here, but yet it was the only place I hadn't been to. Because I grew up on racetracks all around the country. I left Atlanta when I was 6 years old. Mm-hmm. My mother moved us to Tampa, and then a year later she married my stepfather. And so
How old were you when she got married?
7.
7?
Yeah. And so Atlanta, I was born here, but it was the one place I hadn't been. Yeah, and so I came here, and and there's a lot of fun jobs here, man, of that type, JCs, police, all kinds of police organizations.
Mm-hmm. Then you said phone fraud. Did you actually? I mean, were you actually?
The reason I call it here's the difference between phone fraud and legal phone work.
Right.
In legal phone work, they took your money that they took from you, and they passed it around and split it amongst a lot of guys. Okay. In phone fraud, I take their money and keep it all myself. Okay. That's the difference. Can you dig it? 2% would go to the cost.
Right.
1 or 2%, literally 1 or 2% would go to the cost. And then it would be split among the room managers, the telemarketers, the leavers, the sponsor, the promoters, what else. So they'd take that basket of money and pass it around to everybody who takes some. That made it legal. And if you took the basket of money and just kept it all yourself, it was fraud. Okay, that's the difference.
Right.
So, yeah, that's why I call it phone fraud. It still is. I know of very few charities these days, actually, that are truly what people think they are.
Right.
Okay, truly what people think they are. There's a few charities that 70% of what they collect goes actually to a cause, but most of these charities, Easter Seals is a good example, and most of the other ones, most of the money they raise is spent raising the money.
Right.
It goes to the printers that print the promotional items who are friends of they pay kickbacks, and it goes to the promoter, and it goes to, a whole bunch of people take some of it. And it's usually more of the reverse. These charities who's nationally known and everything typically would be 30% to the cause. And it's that much. Many of the charities you're being approached to even to this day, police charities and so forth here in Georgia, if you'll read what they're doing, only 2 or 3, they have to disclose it to keep themselves legal now. And only 2 or 3% goes to the cause.
Mm.
Even now. But of course that stuff is so old and passe, it's just old-timey and antiquated. People are much more sophisticated in that respect, to say the least, than they were 30 years ago.
What kind of attracted you to getting involved in that?
Oh, it's because you could work fucked up with long hair. It wasn't a job.
Parents wasn't a big deal and all that.
No. And you sit there with a glass of beer or you have your bottle of whiskey in your coat jacket. Or a wine cooler in a glass. Yeah, you could be fucked up on that stuff. I mean, the promoter would often advertise the job, and he would say, habits okay if you can afford them. Or if he was real strict on it, he would say no habits. Okay. And these jobs would be advertised in a billboard publication known as the Amusement Bulletin. And that was the newspaper for outdoor expositions, state fairs, arenas, that kind of thing. And they had a phone, because quite often the cause that you were pitching was going to be a benefit show in a benefit show or a state fair or something like that. So you'd be calling them up for the JCs, Sandy Springs JCs, a million of them. And you'd say, what we're doing is we're bringing in a country and western show. We want to bring in a lot of underprivileged kids to it. It's just $1 a kid, and all the proceeds are going to the boys' farm, the boys' ranch, right? And back then, of course, when you said underprivileged kid, it denoted a white child his parents were drunk and mean and abusive. Some poor little old bird-headed owl had to wear raggedy clothes to school. His parents didn't treat him very good, and that thing. It was... Nowadays, you say Andrew child, anyone knows it's going to be an African-American child out of the projects. Now, look at Toys for Tots. Yeah, you really ought to see them distribute. You know this Marine Corps Toys for Tots? They distribute the toys typically. One location would be down there at the old Sears building on Ponce de Leon, which is now City Hall East. And go down there and look at them distribute those toys. It'll be African-Americans pulling up in, I kid you not, African-Americans pulling up in Mercedes and Cadillacs, going in there just loading up armfuls of clothes. Toys. Walking out. That's what it is now. People are hip to that. But back then, an unprivileged child was just a poor white kid who was a good kid. He had just gotten a bad break. His daddy was in the penitentiary, and his mom was a drunk, that kind of thing. And so that's what it was. Oh, and anyway, the point is, we're bringing in a country and western show. Hence the connection with the amusement bulletins, because that would be shows there. Sometimes you bring in a circus. You bring a little one-ring circus. Put it on in the margin of a shopping center, just like a carnival or something.
Mm-hmm.
Bring in a circus for the kids. Children's Christmas shopping tour. You still see for the cops. Where they give the child the money and you shop with a cop, you still see that. It was this last Christmas. I saw it, It would be that. We'd ask for $10 in and sponsor a child. I'm sure it's a lot more now. And then have police officers in the room.
Did you ever get back on your feet in Atlanta, or you just continued to do that? And
I got back on my feet. I never did because, because I've been deep into downs, and now reality's sitting there, and I can't get any more downs. And for a person that has an addictive personality towards downs, what the problem is, what makes a lot of alcoholics and so forth, is that they have a high level of anxiety within them. I've heard it expressed the motor is all. You see this in heroin addicts too. The same thing. I don't mean your guys fucked up heroin addicts. I mean white intellectual heroin addicts. That manage their habit, or they haven't managed their sin. You have a high anxiety level. They can't turn the motor off. They can't relax. And the thing about what makes these alcohol and these all these central nervous system depressants so addictive is that here you have a person who has a hard time relaxing, who has a hard time partying, you might say, has a hard time being loose, is always anxious, worried. In my case, it was just a high level of what they call existential anxiety, which is the awareness of your future. You know you're going to die. And there's a psychiatric school of thought that says existential anxiety is responsible for most of human neurosis. Because we're the only...
That bothered you back then?
Since I was 4 years old, my earliest thoughts were of death and that I was going to die. Really? When I was 4 years old, I could place it because of the situation I was in when I thought it. And when I was 4 years old, I can remember looking at my hand and pondering the fact that this hand one day will be a skeleton. Yeah, when I was 4 years old.
Well, what was the situation, if you don't know that?
No, it was an intellectual thought. It was the awareness of my future being.
Okay.
The humans are the only animal that I know that really has to cope with it, although it's really hard to tell. But it's a tremendous psychic load. It's the knowledge of our future non-being, or the inevitability of our death, is the thing that shapes our entire life. It is. Your life, my life, and everything else. It's the thing that is responsible for the activities you do to escape from the thought.
Don't do it.
Okay? You're so busy. You have your family. You have your activities. You have your work. You have your church. What you're doing is running from existential anxiety. Yeah, if you stop for 1 second and there's nothing there to distract you, like your kids and everything else that are, quote, the most important thing in the world to you. And if that was just emptied out of your mind, the existential anxiety will catch up to you, and it's just too absolutely horrifying. Without the comfort of believing in an afterlife, believing in supernatural ghost stories. You see, we have the president of the United States, the most sophisticated and powerful country in the world, standing up there telling the world that he believes in a ghost story, which is what Jesus Christ is, and that kind of thing, talking about Jesus, and that's a ghost story. That is of the supernatural, you know. And here we are, most advanced peoples ever, and we're talking about ghost stories, and they all do it. You see how stupid they are? They're total fucking idiots, but they're just being human beings. You see, they're just being human beings. They're running from their existential anxiety. That's what's responsible for being so busy. Why you're wearing that tie. Why you're devoting yourself to work for the betterment of society. Hey, son, forget it. Look, any good anthropologist can tell you we're doomed. Okay? And so can any cosmologist, too. It's just on a larger time scale, that's all. And so can any good geologist can tell you, hey, don't you know the super volcano under Yellowstone? There's over 70 super volcanoes. You don't even know what a super volcano is. Check out pbs.org and get their show on super volcanoes, and they explain it to you. The super volcano that is the Yellowstone Plateau, these things are so big that they're hundreds of square miles. They don't really have a crater. They have magma chambers that can take a million years to fill. The super volcano under Yellowstone has erupted 3 times in the last 2 million years. It has an average cycle of 600,000 years. When it erupts, it basically wipes out downwind the eastern part of the U.S. If you're looking at a map of the U.S., Yellowstone is here, and project a cone like this, and it basically blankets in a cone the whole eastern seaboard of the U.S. under several feet of ash, and would just destroy any civilization in that area. Well, listen, it's erupted 3 times in the last almost 2 million years. And guess what? It's got a cycle of 600,000 years. And guess what? It's been 630,000 years since it last erupted. That thing could pop off any minute, pal. Okay. They know the power of that.
Meteor I'm always talking about.
Yeah, that's all they're talking about.
Well, that's another thing. That is more unpredictable. It's going to happen, but when, we don't know. We know this is going to happen. We know the time scale. Hey, check it out, the Olympic plate up there in the Northwest, okay? In 1967, they had a super earthquake in Alaska, over 9 points on the Richter scale. It's only the 3rd one ever known to human beings. And in this case, they were able to observe the effects. Relatively few people were killed because at that time Alaska was sparsely populated. Yeah. But geologists had an idea of what a mega, over 0.9 earthquake would do, geologically speaking. But they were only theories. And they were able to study the effects of this and confirm it. And they have found that the Olympic plate has, in the last 20,000 years, has shook itself out with a plus 0.9 earthquake 18 times. Okay, and not only have they confirmed it, they by study. What they've done really to really get it precise is they always had a theory that underwater you have the continental shelf under the ocean. You have the continental shelf, and then it goes down to the depths of the ocean. And in that, we're kind of like ravines, sort of, or canyons. Mm-hmm. And geologists had a theory that a megaquake would make undersea earth slides on that, and it would leave a record. And so they were able to shelf under the ocean. You have the continental shelf, and then it goes down to the depths of the ocean. And in that, we're kind of like ravines, sort of, or canyons. Mm-hmm. And geologists had a theory that a megaquake would make undersea earth slides on that, and it would leave a record. And so they were able to study the effects of the Alaska earthquake and see that was so. So they drilled off, like Washington State, okay, into these ravines right at the edge of the continental shelf. That's how they found it. Had shook itself out, plus 9 earthquakes 18 times. It was right there in the layers, pal. Okay. Okay. Well, that's an average of about 500-something years between shakeouts. Guess, when the last one was? Christmas 500 years ago. Right? Well, we got a little while ways to go. We're in the zone, though. It was Christmas Day, 1700. Or 1699, 1700 to 1699. Yeah, we dated precisely. Not only that, geologically we dated. Well, we can dig up the redwoods that were buried in the tsunami tidal wave now. And of course they're dated, and now that we know what we're looking for, and that in fact is what happened. Okay. Hey, I don't know, tell you about Rainier. Yeah, you got to go see Mount St. Helens. That's the most awesome sight you have ever seen. Okay, they say it was equivalent to 400 atom bombs. You'll believe it when you see that. I hiked up right into the blast zone, actually, to where the road ends, and right up there where the blast came right out. Where you see
how close to the earthquake? Or when the volcano blew we got there?
Oh, that was in '95. So I was.
The trees had almost grown back by then.
No.
They hadn't?
No.
95.
15 years after. No. It still looked like the moon. You were still now, you were just still now then seeing a few sprigs. Those places are deserts, man, to begin with. All of out west, unless you're on the east side of the Olympic Mountains, which is only a coastal strip of about 100 miles. That's real green and rain. The rest of Washington and Oregon are deserts. They grow a lot of stuff because they're irrigated heavily. And all of those states are just basically volcano deserts. If you go and drive through western Colorado, Utah, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington State, except for that coastal strip, you'll see that all of that, you'll come to realize that this place is all volcanic. Everything there is volcanic. All the rocks are volcanic. There's no dirt out there. It's just kind of volcanic gas. You throw your duffel bag down and it goes poof, really fucks up your back. You can immediately realize this place is going to blow the fuck up one of these days. Okay, what about Mount Rainier, man? I mean, Mount Rainier just looms over Seattle, okay? The western face of Mount Rainier is just rotten. It's just really mud and rocks glued together with ice. Frozen ice. All that has to do is be heated, and you'll have these huge lahars. They're called lahars. The mud flows. That mud flow that killed 50,000 people down in South America about 15 years ago. Remember that little girl was trapped in it, and they tried to get her out.
Guatemala or Venezuela?
No, I tried. God, I can't
remember. You're obviously well traveled. You've been several places.
Anyway, the point is, listen, but. Again, I'm not judging you because I understand you're doing the best you can to handle your psychic load. You're doing
it couldn't have been that much for you because after a while, didn't you get kind of I know you had a Camaro for a little bit, so that was in the 70s?
1980. I had a brand new Camaro.
Was it Smokey and the Bandit type, or?
It looked like it, although it was just a 6-cylinder, but it was a California Camaro in the Van Nuys, California assembly plants. White, clean, black, no.
What made the move? What did you do to get that? Just out of curiosity. Were you still working in marketing, or?
Well, no. I started fraudulent telephone solicitation in. After I got up here, within about a half
year. On your own? Or
on my own, just printing invoices and selling them.
Oh, okay.
Just printing, making up. Southeast Regional Council, Georgia.
During that time, you were making good money doing that?
Well, yeah, but I was so drunk, sick drunk. I stayed sick drunk until September 77. And then I quit.
Yeah.
But
cold turkey, or did you go to rehab? Or
no, I did. I got medical help on that.
Where'd you get that at?
A private doctor in downtown Decatur. And what I had been doing was going to Grady because my blood pressure had gotten so sky high, just tremendously high, like 145 over 150, just tremendously high. And I was doing that, but the handwriting was on. They were giving me experimental drugs. That was I had a couple of convulsions. And handwriting was on the wall. And I got married to a prostitute. And on the day I got married, I met and courted her and married her drunk. And the day we got married, I quit. Bad mistake. We only stayed married 6 months.
What was her name? You remember?
Yeah, Yvonne Ball was her name. Oh, her real name, her whole name was Donna Yvonne Ball, but she went by
Dinah.
Like
Yvonne Ball.
Yvonne with a Y.
Okay. Is she still around, or is she?
I haven't seen her for decades, over 20 years. Well, I ran into her on Highlands 20 years ago. I was running, down the street, and I ran into her. And I just said a few words, hi, how you doing? And I said, you working? And what I mean is, did she have a job?
Right.
In retrospect, and she said, and looking back on it, I realized how really she took that question to mean. And she said yes. And,
So she was still probably.
yeah, and I said, well, see you. And I didn't know what else to say to her.
Right.
The poor thing, I just felt for her. She didn't have a chance in the world, that poor girl.
Yeah.
She was so dumb, man. She tried to listen to her rings, and she was too dumb to get in.
How old
Literally.
was she when you guys got married?
She was about my age, and we got married in 77, so that would have put her about 31.
31. Right.
And, but at any rate, I quit drinking. But the problem is, and I stayed sober for, I fell off the wagon for 6 months in 82, quit again, and stayed sober until 1995, I'm sorry. Then I stayed drunk for 4 years, till 89, and I haven't had a single drink since 89. But the first time I quit, yes, I went to a private doctor. He put me on Melville. It's called an antidepressant, but...
You remember the doctor's name, right?
Nah, Gold something, but don't they all have Goldstein, Gold Bar, Gold, whatever.
You married again in 79, didn't you?
Yeah, and in 79, again, I was married for 6 months.
So you were only married to Dinah for how long?
6 months. We were divorced in about March, April of 78. And then I married the police officer, Sue. That's Stone Mountain Police Department. And by the way, she was grandfathered in, so she was, in other words, she was a police officer before post.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so she was not a post-certified officer, although the department, well, then the law had been passed. Everyone had to be post to be a blue light police officer.
Right.
But she had started before then, so she was grandfathered in. And at the time I was going with her, or married to her, she was not post-certified. However, she was a blue light police officer.
Then you had met her there in the park?
Yeah, I was running there every day, and I was really good, looking good, and in great shape. And after we were divorced in late 79, I started taking pills again. And the rationale was, hey, I'm not drinking, but I'll just take every pill I can get. Mm-hmm. And that was in the waning days of the Quaalude craze.
Right.
As a matter of fact, you can even still get real lower Quaaludes. The DEA, one guy in the DEA persuaded the 4 or 5 people in the world that made methylqualone hydrochlorides to just discontinue production. Okay, the same guy, and there was no more Quaaludes, real Quaaludes. And then they were all counterfeit, made typically of diazepam, which is Valium.
Right.
And they were great. I estimate some of those counterfeit Quaaludes made of diazepam probably perhaps even up to 500 milligrams of diazepam in it. And as you know, it comes in 5, 10, 15, 20 milligram caps, and I estimate some of those had up to 5. I mean, they were instant white lightning. I mean, you take a whole one and if you were an experienced downquake, you'd stay on your feet and would do all kinds of things, but you wouldn't remember a damn thing of it later. I mean, these were wild. I've woken up after a night of doing those things, walked out to my Camaro, seen that I had my spare running, looked into the trunk and seen my original car was totally shredded, totally to pieces, and then in a couple of hours have a guy from the I live in Stone Mountain, have a guy from Noonday Baptist Church at Highway 5 and 92 at Woodstock call me and tell me he found my wallet in the church parking lot. Okay, I had no business up in Woodstock, number one. I had a shredded tire and no remembrance at all of changing it out and putting the spare up. And a guy has found my wallet in a Noonday Baptist Church in Woodstock, 50 miles away. And you can only think of, God only knows what happened that night and how many people I ran over or what. That tire was shredded so much it was like, God, hit a curve at 100 miles an hour. It was wild. It was wild. Yeah, those were wicked, totally wicked. And so
You started doing this while you were married to Sue?
No. I wouldn't take a pill or nothing while I was married. I was in my rebirth. When you start running, you see, I had a lot of strength or foreknowledge as far as being able to run long distances because I learned in the Army in a class of 600 guys. Okay, now, and that is that your average guy, if he's young, in good health, and not obese, your average guy can go out and run for an astonishing long time. If you'll do it LSD, long, slow distance. Okay, don't sweat, just dog trot, or just do it like they do in the Army. Just up,
one shot.
Yeah, exactly. That your average guy, if he's motivated, he can go out and do an astonishing amount of distance. And as you get trained up, you can. So I knew that. That was the average civilian doesn't know that. And they think as soon as they start into a double time, they go, oh, how am I getting tired? Oh, this is getting, and they haven't seen. But you see in the Army with 600 guys doing it, that shows me that you can, that is highly subjective. Your tolerance to fatigue, highly subjective in that you can do it because everyone else is doing it. That proves that how subjective fatigue is. That's what I learned about fatigue in the Army. That was able to carry me through all my athletic endeavors, all through my life, the incredible stuff that I've done in the 90s, as far as powering 30-mile trips, carrying heavy weights, climbing 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 vertical feet in a trip over 30 miles, just doing stuff that people are really impressed by, that know what it means. But see, my secret weapon is that I knew that fatigue was highly subjective, and that it can, in other words, by subjective, I mean your response to fatigue is highly dependent on states of mind, your state of mind. And I learned that in the Army. I learned that because in the Army I saw that I could do stuff that astonished myself and everyone else astonished themselves. And the reason we did it is because we did it together, and he could do it. That's an airborne song, if I can do it, you can do it. If he can do it, you can do it, and, up the hill, around, that kind of thing. So I learned that in the Army. So I was able to start running in 1978, and I met my wife through the running. I was out running at Stone now. Yeah, she would drive by and never would wear a shirt, even in wintertime. Had the hairy chest and, cut. I was lifting weights every other day and running 10 miles or more every other day. Yeah, she'd drive by in the police car. She'd put the intercom on, the loudspeaker, not the intercom, the loudspeaker, Well, they say, all right, everybody, disperse, this show's over. And she'd put that loudspeaker on, off top, and she'd go, like that. And she'd drive by. Oh, yeah, she just scarfed me right up, man. She scarfed. I was her fourth husband, man. She knew how to do it. Yeah, she scarfed me right up because, she got the feel for me. She found out I had VA benefits. And she wanted a home, of course, more than anything. What do all women want? They want their home and things, and they want their kids. Okay, that's what they want. And so she just died for a house, and when she found out I had 2, 6 and 8. And when she found out that I had $115,000 at the time VA loan bill, which was the equivalent of $300,000 now. This is showing me 2 or 3 times the money was. And so that was enough, And so, she got me married and went out and found the house. Got a good deal on it, too. Bought a house across from the school in Decatur, Hollywood Drive. Bought that house. It had been sitting empty. I happen to know the guy that knew me because he lived in the same apartment complex I lived in before I married her. And bought that house for $35,000 then. And this was in '79, and that's just when the big real estate inflation hit down. That inflation of the late '70s. Finally, the President Carter had to put a cap on.
That's back when they had 13% on your house and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. But the inflation rates were so. Even going back to Gerald Ford, he had the Whip Inflation Now program. Anyway, those inflations of the late '70s was the best thing that ever happened to the middle class because that meant. In 5 years, their home would double because just of inflation, the price. And you may say, well, inflation, the money's only worth half as much. Well, So what? If your home was worth $100,000 in 75 and in 79 or 78 is worth $200,000, well, so what if the money was only worth half as much? You still had the $100,000, right? Okay, you still had the $100,000. Okay, so yeah. So she bought that thing. She stole it from the guy. He had gotten a divorce and been sitting there. She saw it just sitting there like this. Sitting there and everything. She got that house for $35,000. When we split up, got divorced 6 months later, we sold the first. We advertised. I advertised. She wanted to get another 5 or another 2 or 3. I said, I got a flying hair at my ass. I said, let's advertise it at 45. Mm-hmm. And bigger than shit, we advertised it at 45, and the first person that inquired on it bought it at $34,500. He asked for $500. That guy was Steve Brock, whose mother was a real estate agent who started For Sale by Owner, the For Sale by Owner. Now there's a lot of For Sale, but the For Sale by Owner, yeah. Yeah, he was buying it for people in California.
So you guys had a
We made $10,000 off that house in 6 months.
A friendly breakup, though. I mean,
oh yeah,
it wasn't not.
Yeah, it was. Oh no.
Okay.
Oh no, I've always been fair to my ex-wife. Mm-hmm. And oh no, she didn't. No, when I bought that house, I bought it in my name, but she was my wife, and she came to the closing of the house. And so I bought it in my name, VA. And at the closing, I said, Sue, do you want to have that house? And she said, yeah. So I told the attorney, can I give her half that house? He said, yeah, I'll make you a quick claim deed right now. And I gave her half the house. Okay? And I thought it was fair, because she's the one that went out and got it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I wouldn't have had it. No. I wouldn't have made the $10,000. So when we sold the house, I was willingly gave her half of the proceeds.
But you were in an apartment before that, kind of on your own?
Yeah, just apartment of the proceeds.
But you were in an apartment before that, kind of on your own?
Yeah, just apartment.
You went from an apartment to a house with kids?
With 2 kids, man, and then back.
What was that like, just making that transition from...
Well, you see, it
drives me nuts.
Well, back then I was really a pathetic guy in that, you see, the saddest thing in the world is a loner, which I was. A loner trying not to be one. In other words, a loner that doesn't know themselves. And what happens is people with sociopathic characters that are loners, what happens is all their life, all the way up through the present day, are programmed, they're bombarded by hundreds of messages every day telling them that any activity is only valid if they do it with someone else. Every bit of advertising in the world, every cultural message that you receive, everything is programming you to the fact that any activity you do is only validated if you do it with someone else. Whatever it is, it's multiples. I can remember a good example. I had a season pass for Six Flags in the summer of '78, and I told someone, I'm going to Six Flags tonight, and they said, oh, who are you going with? Well, I wasn't going anyone. I just had a season pass. I'd go out there, and it's a summer evenings, long evenings. I'd just go and people watch, ride rides, do what I wanted to. It was always awkward, a single person getting on a ride. It had 2 seats. But hey, there'd be some other idiot there. Oh, they'd put me with him. And I had a great time. I saw all these people and the colors and sights and sounds of Six Flags. It was great. Summer evenings and everything. And I said, no one, I'm going alone. They go, oh, bummer. But that's the attitude of society. I mean, when's the last time you went to a movie alone? Okay, never. You'd be afraid to. Okay, you'd think people would think you were odd. People are enculturated and programmed to only believe that life is valid if they're doing it with others. So the problem with these poor loners, these sociopaths, is they're so programmed like that in spite of themselves, they don't know themselves. They don't understand that there's no hope for them. They don't understand They don't understand that they're a round peg in a square hole and that they're never going to fit in. They don't understand that there's no way in the world that they are going to get some real satisfaction out of a human relationship. They don't understand that any human relationship they have will always be less than fulfilling. They don't understand that. And they're trying to be like everyone else, but they're not. So it's, the thing that's so wrenching about it is, number one, two things. Number one is, when they're trying to be like everyone else and they're not, what happens is, number one, they're not going to get the satisfaction. They're always going to have an odd disconnect, number one. And number two, and really the saddest thing is, no matter how much they try to be like everyone else, it's not going to be good enough for everyone else. They're not going to fit in and they're not going to be accepted. That's terrible. That's terrible.
So that's kind of experience moving.
Yeah. See, you know, but I didn't understand myself until 21. Actually, when I got a dog. And all of a sudden I was no longer alone, and I didn't have that wrenching sense of loneliness and being alone, but yet there would be no salvation in the company of others. You're alone, your life is empty, alone, lonely, but there's no salvation or satisfaction in the company of others. It's a terrible. I see many. Those are the worst kind of people. They're tragically unhappy. And
I'll go to the restroom right quick. I don't too much coffee myself.
Hey, we need another cup if there's any left.
You want another one there?
Yeah.
So what was it like being with kids, and then, you know,
Now, that's the answer to
I'm
the
kind of
question. I was trying to be normal.
I'm kind of an apartment guy myself, you know, and then
You're not married?
No.
Oh.
Then you go from you know, your own time, your own thing, to living with, were they boys, girls? What was,
Yeah, a boy and a girl, and
both.
I was trying to be normal.
Was
But
it
I
just
wasn't.
not
I was involved in fraud. I didn't even have a job. You know, finally she told me, you know, because I was presenting it to her that I was a self-publisher and so forth, and these deals were sponsored, and they were real. I even had her picking up money for me at the beginning of our relationship.
Did she catch on to that, or was it?
When she did, she said, "Man, it's not a job. It's a con game," she said. And she was.
Did you kind of try to keep that from her, or kind of try to hold it together a little bit, as far as not wanting to lose it, but she wouldn't?
Oh, she caught on. And in the end, I think she's probably the one that turned me in.
Turned you in for?
Fraud and telephone solicitation. As soon as we were divorced, I got busted out. I had an office in Decatur. Got busted out by Decatur County. And had a phone room. Busted me right on out. Took everything. Phone, everything.
When was this?
This was in 79.
You got busted in 79? Or?
Yeah, at the end of 79. Right after the divorce.
Did you get any time for it? Or?
Oh, no, it was a misdemeanor. Fraudulent telephone solicitation.
But they didn't give you any of your phones back, or your office?
Man, they did all this work on it, including running an undercover officer through the operation. They ran a black female juvenile officer, police officer, through the operation, had her come get a job, work a day there. And then when they came for the arrest, they showed up with crime scene vans with their own boxes.
Now, were you married at the time?
No, we had been divorced just a week or two or a month or whatever. I think our divorce was final in about October the 20th.
How'd that divorce go? Was it kind of, well, with any, was it more an amicable thing, like you both decided, or was it?
No, it was.
Did you call it quits with her, or did?
Well, I had, and then she had. She had enough too. I mean, you know. Oh, well, she had been shopping it out by then, and she already had the next guy lined up.
No, it is.
Oh, yeah.
How did you react to that?
Well, I had to laugh, you know. I think, you know, these girls stay looking for a husband, and I call it sleeping around.
Yeah, I guess it's all in your perspective.
Yeah. Oh, no, she'd have fucked out the police department out there already before she met me. Oh, she had fucked the captain.
Did she tell you this, or is this
oh,
you
yeah.
kind of learned?
Oh, no, she told me. Oh, no, she was crazy. God, Lord.
Like how?
She one of her boyfriends was making, not a police officer, but one of her boyfriends was making 8 million, they had, well, they didn't have a video, very little video right there, and was making 8 millimeter films of her dancing nude,
How did that come up in conversation with the new husband?
Oh, that's the way it always is. Don't you know that? If you're going with someone sooner or later, and typically the chick, because she's the one that's got the pussy and can fuck anytime she wants, sooner or later it comes around to all the people I've fucked. It always ends up that way. Don't you know that? Yeah, sure. Anytime you have a relationship, you can go with someone that sooner or later, there's who else have you fucked, and almost invariably, at least with the chicks I go with, they want to tell you, Yeah, and the reason why...
Obviously, I missed out on an important part of the conversation.
And the reason why is that, you see, and there's a fine distinction, for women to threaten to give it away, their pussy, and for them to let you know that they could give it away, and they have given it away, increases the value of it. However, there's marketing. But a sophisticated woman understands that to threaten to give it away increases the value, and actually giving it away to someone else decreases the value. And some women aren't smart enough to know the difference, and they fuck up that way.
Was that Sue, or?
They all do that! They all do that. You know how they do it? The nice girls do? Are you married?
Yeah.
Okay. The nice girls, you know how they do it? They say, either you marry me, or forget about it, I'm going to find someone else. That's the threatening to give it away. That is what it is, okay? And that's how they get men to do what they want them to do.
Oh, yeah?
Always, yeah. Either you do what I want, or in the end, I'm going to give it to someone else. Yeah. And you see, that part of my dislike, or I wouldn't call it hatred, but almost, for women, is that they have all the advantages. They got
that gets stacked against it.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. And so I finally came to the conclusion, the last piece of ass I had, except for rape here, was in 89. Was in January of 89. And I never...
You kind of dropped out of the game there.
I was never so happy after I did that. Oh, yeah. Well, once you stop getting led around by the dick, and we all are, they're like a fucking animal. Yeah, all of us are. That's right. That's why we become less than men. That's why we start doing a woman's agenda. Hey, listen, how many little 9-year-old boys have said to the little girls, oh, I would like you to get your toy tea set out, and let's have a tea, and let's get our dollies here, and have tea with our dollies. You've never seen a boy do that. But that's what a woman wants you to do as an adult, is to play house. Okay? And to have children. How many 9-year-old boys... Now, don't get me wrong, I understand that for many men, having children is the greatest thing in their life. But nevertheless, how many 9-year-old boys have you known that have said, oh, I don't want to be a soldier, or a pilot, or astronaut. I want to grow up and have a family. Bullshit. Okay? That's not what men are about. Okay? But in the end, puberty happens. The hormones rise. We start getting led around by our dick.
You get that tax break.
And in the end, we become women. You look at any married couple, virtually. When I say any, that's a big word, but, virtually any married couple, especially the older one. And what you have is not a man and a woman. You have two women, and one of them has a penis. And he's the designated dick, It's like, honey, can you give me my dick back tonight, And you have two women doing the things that a woman wants to do, and having the values that a woman has, and leading a woman's agenda, with the so-called man given permission to do symbolic, almost ritual things that make him the man. It may be whatever. It may be having his collection of Snap-on tools in the garage. It may be his Harley Davidson. It could be his fishing or his hunting. These are symbolic, ritualistic things that they're allowed to do to say they're the men. And even generally the toughest of men, roughest and toughest, generally they go home to a soft house, to a soft woman's environment, to a nicey. Look at those damn Muslims we're fighting. Man, they sit against a damn mud wall on their damn ass, eating fucking shit with their hands, and there ain't no pictures on the wall because they can't have pictures. It's forbidden to by Muslims. And they're tough as fucking nails. They're thin, they're wiry. They eat a handful of mud every day and they shit once a week. They sit on the fucking floor. Oh man, and here, our so-called men, they go home to cushy and everything's nicey, and it's all got the woman's touch and everything. There's two women there. You look at any man's home. You look at any man's, I'll ask you a question in a minute. You look at any man's home. It ain't a man's home. It's a woman's home. And what is this man thing? Having a nice lawn. Oh, Jesus Christ, give me a fucking break. Out there cutting grass and digging in the dirt like a fucking animal.
All your travels and camping and stuff, you get by yourself, you get a lot of time to think. And
that's the thing. People
have a lot of insight now.
Lawyers and everyone else ask me constantly, how come you're so seemingly intelligent? Are you well-read? Are you well-educated? You're right. You hit it right on the head. That's very perceptive of you. The reason I'm so seemingly intelligent is that I, alone amongst almost anyone, including you dudes, have time to actually stop and think about things.
Yeah,
you don't have time to stop and think about things. You are so busy distracting yourself because you're running from really the reality of this situation, which is you're gonna fucking die. And you are so busy just frantically, desperately distracting yourself with every kind of thing in the world, including your work. Now again, I'm not judging you. I mean, you're just human beings. That's all you are. You're just human beings, and God bless you. I mean, Lord, I'm not judging you, but I'm just saying, you're so embedded in this matrix that you live in that you can't even see it. Again, I'll refer you back to what the advertised. Get the Persuaders, PBS.com, two 1-hour shows called The Persuaders on Advertising. An academic saying, in other words, this is academic thought, not orthodox academic thought. He says, the goal of advertisers has always been not only to suffuse the atmosphere, but to be the atmosphere, and to leave us no way out of or around the world they have created for us. That's orthodox academic thought. If you studied advertising and got a degree in it, that's what you would learn. That the goal is to be the atmosphere and to leave us no way out of or around the world they've created for us. And they succeeded. You are so embedded matrix of culture, you don't even know it. Sociologists as early as the late 70s, and certainly by 1982, were dealing with the concept of virtual reality, of hyper-reality, and the fact that we are so divorced because of all these distractions that we have entered, because of this truly artificial world and environment of thought that we built around it, that we can't know what's real, and we shouldn't even try. And you can't. And so you don't. You're just too busy distracted. You don't even know. And you can't see the horse cover it. But that's the thing. You hit right on it. The reason I seem to be intelligent is I alone, amongst very few people, have the time to think. And when you're into hiking, when you're into running, and you're hiking every day, or you're walking your dog every day, 2 or 3 hours, and you're walking, right? You got to stay heads up and watch the dog and make sure you don't get run over. And it's always like a combat patrol that you're going to have to fight at any time. You may hear the clickety-clack of dog nails behind you and spin around, and there's a shepherd in your face ready to rumble, okay? So it is that kind of combat patrol kind of thing. But otherwise, you got time to think. That's one of my personalities. I'm a philosopher, I'm a soldier, I'm a scientist, and I'm an artist. And those are all distinct personality types that represent distinctly different things. And I'm all of them. And what it really is two opposing pairs. You have the rational, intellectual soldier and the scientist, the coldly rational. soldier, and the coldly irrational scientist. The scientist, if it can't be demonstrated, it doesn't exist. It's only a theory. You know, you got to show me the facts in science, okay? So those two are the cold irrational ones. The artist and the philosopher are interested more in the textures and the why and wherefores behind it, you see.
So you're having a balance between the two.
I have all those there, and it's not as complex as it sounds. If you know, if you're aware that I'm a soldier, a scientist, an artist, and a philosopher, if you're aware of that, then I'm a very simple person. Even though I may seem to be a startling juxtaposition of,
what's your artistic side? What do you mean by artist?
Well, by artist, I mean truly in the sense of being an artist, in that you see everything in terms of not the linear, but the impression of it, and so forth. And as far as the medium goes, I'm an artist that people ask me, I tell them I'm an artist, and they say, well, what's your medium? Are you a sculptor? No, my art is my life, and my art is weird. No. Laugh!
No,
I'm an artist. My art is my life, and my art is weird.
I'm actually buying into this.
Of course, it's true. It's all true. When it's true, it's real.
Well,
everything I'm telling you is true. Everything I'm telling you is real.
I'm actually buying into this.
Of course, it's true. It's all true. When it's true, it's real. Everything I'm telling you is true. Everything I'm telling you is real. It exists. It's true.
Well, what I'm saying is you say your life is your medium, and
it's done for an audience of one. Because the rest of the world, they can't really understand. People see me, and I delight in presenting a fantastic spectacle to people in terms of my technicality. You know, I'm all teched out. I'm strapped with every kind of layer of equipment just to be walking. Because I need it. That's why. When you're 4 or 5 miles from your house, you better have a pair of tweezers if your dog gets up. You better have a compression bandage in case he slashes his leg open or you knock a thing in there. If you don't have a compression bandage, and you do something like this, okay, it'll bleed as you're walking. It'll bleed. It won't stop. It'll fill your shoe or boot up with blood if you don't have a compression bandage. So, and I present this fantastical spectacle to people. But I understand. They can't understand it because it's so fantastical. It's kind of like the Lone Ranger. And the Lone Ranger would come galloping into town. There would be all the schmuck townspeople, right? And here the Lone Ranger would be wearing this mask, a skin-tight outfit, a really elaborate 2-gun rig mounted with silver with chrome pistols, and just a theatrical outfit. He'd be mounted on this beautiful palomino. He'd have this trippy Indian named Tonto with him. You know what I'm talking about? And if the Lone Ranger would ride out again, what would they always say about the Lone Ranger? You don't remember it, but no. They would always say,
who was that masked man?
Yeah, who was that masked man? Okay, that's what I do to society.
Well, let me ask you.
They can't get their mind around it even. That's why they remember me. That's why I can't go anywhere without 100 people calling in. I bet there's people that have called in that met me one time over 10 years ago for 5 minutes and remember me.
You're absolutely right. What brings up something interesting that you're talking about, and why, you know, one thing I'm curious about.
What?
You bumped into a Cherokee County deputy up on some private hunting property back in it was October or something, and that was widely publicized after after we caught up with one another. And
did you hear? Did he get on tape my joke about deer hunters?
Yeah.
What's the 3 reasons the deer hunters? Yeah. I made that up. I'm a comedian too.
You threw it out there to him that you were a what do you throw out there?
That's my standard. I finally realized what I was doing.
Does it?
I'm doing this day after day, and I finally realized it about
not combat patrols where you got to stay alert all the time.
Well, it's not. Yeah, combat patrols, and that's it. And land navigation. It's exactly it. Mm-hmm. Every time I go out walking my dog,
Currently?
Yeah. Every time I go out walking my dog, I'm like a police officer. I understand that there's a significant chance that before I come home, I'm going to be fighting for my life. every time I walk my dog anywhere.
Right.
You know why? Because go and take a 7-mile run through the neighborhood. You'll see, you hear $1 million barking. Well, all it takes is one gate left open, one door left open. I got a Rottweiler this big. One time, I'd run a route for over 10 years, and I never knew the dog was there. And I'm passing by a house, and I hear a guy go yelling, "Bad dog! Bad dog! Bad dog!" And I look, and that was his dog's name. It was a big-ass Rottweiler coming for me. He had gotten loose out of the house, and that was the dog's name, Bad Dog. I mean, that's the way it is, man. You know, it's like police work, you know. I mean, 90 minutes of boredom and 10 minutes of utter, pucker up shit, man. Right? But it's happened so much, though. I thought so, and again, I say fighting, I shape the situation rather than kick ass. Because if you kick ass, it's going to ruin your day regardless. Even if you're right, it may not go your way. You don't have a bad, so, So, yeah, anyway, I realized that, about 1995 or so, I realized that that's what I'm doing. I do just like you do on, for instance, we were mechanized too, in addition to being airborne, which meant we had armored personnel carriers, the M113, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And that's typical mechanized stuff. You get in the track, you drive somewhere, you unaft, you form a perimeter, you run a patrol, you come back, you unload again, move. It's just a war of movement, You move, get out. You don't hang around that track. It's a good target, You don't sit in the damn track. You get out anytime it stops, because you're going to be safer in there. RPG will take that track out, man. It's got an 80-gallon gas tank. Whoa. And that's what I was doing with the truck, with the dog. I'd get in the truck or a vehicle, move, get out, get my shit together, run a patrol, come back, eat, sleep, move, get out, get my shit together, run a patrol. And I finally realized that I was just on perpetual field maneuvers. And I said, well, ain't much of a life, but hell, it's a life.
Well, when you throw that stuff out like that, I'm trying to figure out. You call it artistry or whatever. Is it?
Well, you're not calling it insanity.
No. I'm not saying that. No, I don't think you're insane. By no stretch of the imagination.
No.
What I'm getting at is it almost like a little acting on your behalf to, I don't know, kind of steer this law enforcement officer away from you, or?
Well, with him, no. I was being perfectly candid with him. I steered him away from him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what,
Well, here's the thing. Police officers are individuals, so of course they're going to run across the whole spectrum of human behavior. But
right.
there's a large number of police officers that are highly experienced,
right.
and that they are pros,
right.
and they recognize a pro when they see a pro.
Right.
And I'm a pro.
Right.
Okay. I'm not some bum out there sleeping in my van.
Right.
I'm a pro.
Right.
He saw my map collection because I was showing him maps, man. I got a. And these are just the maps I carry.
Right.
I got a Rubbermaid 36-gallon Rubbermaid container full of maps, area maps, topo maps, every kind of map. Okay,
you're not just laying around your train.
I got a map collection that's so exotic. I mean, it's wild. It's got every kind of area map everywhere from Shining Rock Wilderness to all the way down to Ocala National Forest in Florida. I can pull out any map. And I got topo, actual USGS topo map, so much of the North Georgia area, every kind of map. I got Cherokee National Forest, Monongahela National, every national forest. Not only that, I have multiples of many of them. Because you lose a map and you only have one map. I've done it. It screws you up. It's hard to get another one too.
Well, in the interest of time, if you don't care, let's go back to, where did we get up to? The early 80s?
About 1980.
Mm-hmm. Early 80s?
Right after the divorce.
You were still in Atlanta at that time? And you were back?
Yeah. And when I got busted, I had to go straight for 6 months. I got a job.
What did you get arrested for?
Fraudulent telephone solicitation. It was a misdemeanor then, though. Now it's a felony.
What type of telephone fraud were you doing at that point?
Well, the usual. Georgia Veterans Journal, Georgia Inspectors Journal,
right.
Southeast Regional Council, Georgia Youth Sport Project. You know, back then the BBB had a list of charities that were not approved for giving. They didn't say disapproved. They just said not approved for giving. Don't meet their guidelines or wouldn't respond is what it was. They were on one sheet, and it was just tiny little type. So you had like 3-4 columns. So you had like probably 300 charities on this one sheet, 250 charities. Well, I was like, just me was like 4 or 5 of them was on that, and they were me, Southeast Regional Council, the Georgia Christian. I call it the Georgia Christian Index because just out of my subconscious I came up with that, but actually the name of it turned out that the name of the official Southern Baptist publication is the Christian Index, and I call it mine Southeast Regional Council because somewhere out of my subconscious I had seen Southern Regional Council, which is a decades-old organization, quasi-government, that kind of thing. And somewhere I'd heard that, and thinking I had no a priori knowledge of that, I thought I came up with it on my own, Southeast, but it was pretty damn close.
What year was that you got arrested for that?
79.